You're a disgrace to society, a useless person even at the head office. That's why you were dumped here. Just go home."
I thought I was ignoring it, but these words from the branch manager broke something inside of me. My name is John Sullivan. Since I was a kid, I've always been good at studying. I graduated from a prestigious university with excellent grades and landed a job at a major bank. Over the years, I've been successfully navigating through my career, gaining valuable experience along the way. I was also blessed with a good marriage, marrying a kind woman I met. Our son grew up healthy, and I could say my life was going pretty smoothly. Then one day, I was assigned to a branch with a very high turnover rate and nothing but bad rumors. I went there with my guard up, wondering what was happening, but I found a branch manager who constantly harassed the staff and was always quick to show off his power. Be careful, especially those from the head office become easy targets. A person from the branch secretly warned me, and sure enough, the branch manager targeted me right away. He gives me an endless amount of work, only says things that are convenient for him, and blames others for his mistakes. I was impressed with how much he could think of to harass people. Even though it's work, dealing with such a branch manager every day is exhausting. I couldn't help but vent at home, but my heart was soothed by my wife, who prepared a warm cup of tea and said, "You really had a tough day, huh?" and by the smile of my son as he climbed onto my lap. For my wife and son, and to protect my family, dealing with one or two troublesome people didn't seem like a big deal. However, it's hard when it starts affecting my family. Although I had taken a paid leave in advance for my son's preschool recital today, the branch manager gave me a call saying, "Come to the office now." I couldn't help but sigh. Luckily, the recital had already ended, but I was looking forward to having lunch with the family as we had made a reservation. But I couldn't ignore the branch manager's call, and I explained to my son on the way back that I had to go to work soon. My son, looking dissatisfied, said, "I guess it can't be helped if it's for work, but you promised." This made me even sadder, especially knowing that the call was probably not that important. But then, I noticed something odd about my son's expression. He seemed to be looking behind me, and after staring for a while, he pointed and said, "Doesn't that grandma look strange?" I turned around in response, and was shocked. On a road with little traffic, there was an elderly lady, unsteadily making her way onto the street. Her expression was dark and troubled, and she wasn't looking around at all. I saw a car speeding up from a distance, and before I knew it, I ran towards the lady shouting, "Watch out." I pulled her arm, making sure not to let her fall and to support her in case something happened. As we moved away from the road, just then, a car drove past, and a voice yelled from the car, "Watch out, idiot." I was so focused on the elderly lady's safety that I accidentally tripped and fell to my knees, and she also ended up sitting down on the spot. We were both stunned for a moment, but then people gathered around, sensing something had happened. My son rushed to me, clutching my clothes, and asked, "Dad, are you okay? And is she okay, too?" I calmed down and patted his head, saying, "I'm fine." The elderly lady still seemed stunned, but after I repeatedly asked, "Are you okay? Do you have any pain?" she finally looked at me. "Are you okay? You shouldn't jump out into the road like that." My son also looked up at her, worried.
"Oh, I'm fine. Did you stop me, young man?"
she said, finally calming down a bit, and bowed her head to me. I'm glad you're safe. Sorry for pulling you so suddenly. I hope you're not hurt, I said, and then realized I had thrown my bag in the moment. Oh, my bag, I said as I looked around, and then my son pointed out, over there, to where my bag was lying a little distance away. Some documents inside had scattered, so my son helped me pick them up, and the old lady helped with a few pages too. I'm really sorry. Thank you for saving me. Are you by any chance from Skybank? Can I ask your name? The elderly lady said, looking at the documents. Yes, I'm John Sullivan from Skybank.
That's my dad. He's a kind man.
After I introduced myself, my son unexpectedly said something quite embarrassing, and I found myself wryly smiling. She was also having a cheerful conversation with my son, saying, "Is that so? He saved me today as well." I had been worried about her because she looked so gloomy when she was wandering earlier, but now she seemed to be in good spirits. However, as she took a step forward, she grimaced a bit. I thought I was okay, but maybe I twisted my ankle, said the elderly lady while checking her slightly swollen ankle. I quickly had her sit down nearby. Then I said, I have a car close by. I'll go get it and take you to the hospital, pointing towards the parking lot. Initially, she said, it's not that painful. I can walk on my own, but after hearing my son's warm words, don't push yourself if it hurts, she nodded with a wry smile. Later, after explaining the situation to my wife who was waiting in the car, I took the elderly lady to the hospital and then returned to the office. As expected, I was scolded for being late. Although I explained the situation, he never listened to me. The issue I was called in for turned out to be nothing significant, and my day off was just wasted. The latter half of my day was disappointing, but I was satisfied thinking about having seen my son's recital and helping the elderly lady. I went to bed feeling fulfilled. A few days later, I was back at the branch, listening to the branch managers yelling. He had made a mistake with the schedule, and for some reason, he was blaming me for miscommunicating it. This was happening just after opening, behind the counter. I thought about how it would look to customers seeing him like this. I was growing tired of seeing him, but tried to stay calm as I endured his lecture.
All you do is complain. You're a disgrace to society, a useless person even at the head office. That's why you were dumped here. Just go home.
I had been trying to ignore him, but those words from the branch manager broke something inside of me. This guy is truly hopeless. That's what I thought as I firmly stared at the branch manager and opened my mouth. I understand. I'm quitting my job at this branch. The moment I clearly stated that, I heard a tapping sound from behind. When I turned around, I realized that there was already a customer in the branch, unnoticed due to the branch manager's loud voice. It was the elderly lady from the other day, the tapping sound coming from her cane. "Hello, young man. Thank you for the other day," she greeted me with a smile, then turned to the branch manager with a stern face.
I'm Dawson. I was supposed to visit this afternoon. I've been listening to your conversation, and it seems you got our appointment time wrong, branch manager.
Both the branch manager and I reacted with surprise. The scolding I had received was about a morning and afternoon schedule mix-up, and it turned out the appointment was with Mrs. Dawson.
I was fine with either morning or afternoon. My foot's almost healed, so I was out for a walk and saw you, which made me come in. Then I was greeted by that yelling.
The branch manager, unaware that Mrs. Dawson and I knew each other, stood there with his mouth agape. I'm old, but I have a good memory and always take notes of my phone calls. Look, it says I called the branch manager, she said, showing a note from her purse. It was neatly written, call with branch manager, 1 p.m. at the bank.
Branch manager, I made an appointment with you, and it's embarrassing as a professional to blame someone else for your own mistake.
As the branch manager was confronted with evidence, he couldn't yell as he did with me and kept opening and closing his mouth in disbelief. While staring at the branch manager, Mrs. Dawson pointed firmly at me.
Moreover, I wanted this person to be my account manager. That's why I made an appointment for today. If he quits, I don't want to entrust my money to someone who shifts blame onto others. I have $50 million deposited, and I'll withdraw it all right now, so please prepare it immediately.
To my surprise, Mrs. Dawson was a major client of our Sky Bank. The branch manager turned pale at her words.
Please reconsider, I beg you.
He pleaded desperately. Despite his pleas, Mrs. Dawson insisted. I don't care, prepare it now. I held my phone for a while, but when the branch manager saw he couldn't persuade Mrs. Dawson, he turned his gaze to me.
John, please convince her to reconsider.
He pleaded, thinking, does this man have no shame? I replied, I'm resigning from this branch, so I can't interfere. The branch manager was in a state of panic, and Mrs. Dawson and I were waiting for him to calm down when the entrance door opened and an elderly man entered. I quickly checked and approached the customer and greeted him. Thank you for coming, Nolan. At my words, the branch manager froze, staring at the visitor Nolan. Nolan is an executive officer at the main bank of Sky Bank, a name and face the branch manager couldn't possibly not know. Ignoring the branch manager, Nolan first looked at me.
You've had a hard time, John. It seems the situation is as I was told.
As I nodded affirmatively to Nolan, he first greeted Mrs. Dawson.
I apologize for the disrespect shown by our staff member. Please accept my apologies.
Mrs. Dawson hadn't looked at him till then, but she finally turned to Nolan.
And you are?
My apologies. I am Nolan, an executive officer at Sky Bank's head office. I came here upon receiving a call from John.
Mrs. Dawson looked at me, and I nodded affirmatively, conveying, it's okay.
Regarding John here, it was my decision to have him assigned to this branch, and he will not be leaving the bank. Please, could you calm your anger? Of course, he will continue to be your point of contact.
Nolan's explanation made Mrs. Dawson understand the situation. She looked at me again, so I nodded and returned a smile, saying, I'm okay.
So that's how it is. I originally planned to give the withdrawn money to this young man, but if he's okay with it, I'll keep it deposited in this bank.
You can have it, Mrs. Dawson continued, but I quickly shook my head in response. I couldn't possibly accept such a large sum. Yes, that would be appreciated. Thank you, and I look forward to continuing our relationship, I said, smiling to Mrs. Dawson. The branch manager, on the other hand, was completely left out of the conversation and listened, blushing and turning pale. Every time he tried to say something, Nolan's stern look silenced him. After saying goodbye to Mrs. Dawson and promising to meet again later, Nolan and I approached the branch manager, who was now sitting despondently behind us.
You probably already know this, but I had requested John to come to this branch for an internal investigation. the numerous instances of harassment you've inflicted on the staff, and the many people you've driven to resignation. We have all the evidence. Just give up and wait for what's to come."
Nolan's voice thundered like a storm, and the branch manager completely collapsed. Yes, I was assigned to this branch after being asked by Executive Director Nolan to investigate this branch, which has a bad reputation due to its high turnover rate. The incident occurred just as evidence of the branch manager's misconduct had been gathered and the investigation was about to conclude. I was afraid of losing a major client, so I immediately contacted Nolan, who was nearby. I had no idea that Mrs. Dawson was one of our major clients. It was truly fortunate to have learned this before leaving the branch. Afterward, the branch manager was exposed for numerous wrongdoings based on the evidence I had gathered. It turned out that more people than imagined had been harassed simply for not resigning. The branch manager completely lost any way out. He was demoted, which was considered better than being fired, but he couldn't endure the cold stares and eventually resigned, as I heard through the grapevine. I returned to the head office as my investigation completed. My achievement was highly evaluated by the executives, and I continued on an elite career path. I also grew close to Mrs. Dawson, our major client, and during our interactions, she told me why she had done such a thing on the street that day. She had felt unbearably lonely after her son's family, including her grandchildren, moved overseas for work. She had refused to join them, feeling too old to live abroad, but she was overwhelmed by loneliness. She had thought, if something happened to her, maybe her son would come back out of concern. Following her heart, Mrs. Dawson had aimlessly walked onto the road where I saved her. It's scary to think what might have happened if my son and I hadn't been talking there that day. I'm truly glad we were able to help her. And for Mrs. Dawson, being saved that day apparently changed her world. Reflecting on how I had helped and even taken her to the hospital, and how she had enjoyed talking with a child about the same age as her grandchildren, Mrs. Dawson felt ashamed for having considered causing worry to her family. She realized what she did was wrong, and regretted being stuck at home and feeling lonely. Grateful for the change in perspective I had given her, she wanted to repay the kindness and contacted the bank. Since that day, Mrs. Dawson's demeanor changed from being gloomy to bright. She started communicating directly with her sons, expressing her feelings, and increased her outings, laughing as she told me this. Her sons also said to her, "We're happy you talked to us instead of keeping silent. We can come back immediately, but we'll keep in touch more often." Apparently, these words have become a support for Mrs. Dawson. She said, "Still, I feel lonely on a daily basis. It would be nice if you could keep me company." To which I replied, "How about we go out somewhere with my son next time?" Mrs. Dawson seemed a bit surprised but delighted and agreed, leading to us developing a relationship not just professionally but personally as well. In getting close to Mrs. Dawson, I also communicated by phone with her son, who expressed his gratitude, saying, "It's thanks to you guys that my mom seems happier recently. Thank you." My son, who usually doesn't get to see his grandparents because they're far away, has become quite close to Mrs. Dawson, almost like real family. We also quickly became friends with Mrs. Dawson's son and his wife when they visited, and our families began socializing together. Mrs. Dawson no longer shows a gloomy face. She greets us with a smile every time we meet. I watched our family's peaceful smiles, feeling the importance of cherishing bonds with others, and resolved to continue valuing these connections in my life